Let's do this. We're fastly approaching the last 90 days of 2018, and it's coming around with speed. So December is a big month for us. So whether you're scaling, or whether you're at a constraint point, whether you're a new business, whether you're doing 8 figures, December is a big month for us. December is whereby we get ours together for Q1 of 2019 this time around. And there's 2 things we do really. One is we take reflection on what the previous 90 days, 12 months, or however long you've been with us has been. And also we then put a plan in place to make sure that the next year we're hitting it with a, well, as Miguel said, with a bump. Now, as we close out 2018, I want to make sure that we really put some velocity behind what we're doing. So the main thing I want us to do is get focus on our outcomes for the next 90 days. Now, if we think about what happens in December, some of you will say December is a dead month. Some of you will say December is a good month. Whatever it is for you, cool. It might be, in fact, we're looking at 60 days. So don't get some internal block saying, oh, December's dead. Saying December's a big month for us, that's when we get together for Q1. However, I want us to make sure that as we go through September, into October, into November, we've really got power behind it. And there's 2 things that mean that will happen or not happen. One is you've got a constraint that we need to fix, or we've got a campaign or campaigns that we want to replicate and scale. And there may be some variable in between. So we're going to do a few things. First thing I want us to do, and hopefully you guys have got this in front of you, is I want us to come down to really looking at our business at a macro level. So the first thing I want us to do is have a bit of a reset for you and your business. And I want us to do the following. I want to take a couple of minutes to do this. I want us to, first of all, get some clarity on what we're looking to build here. It's so easy to go off point or go off piste. And if I think about the businesses who've been, quote, sustainable and scaled consistently, is when we get towards achieving a goal. Say the goal is $500,000. By the time we get to 350,000, they're already thinking about 750. When we get to 500, they're already thinking about $1 million. So their target's never hit. So I want us to have a brief reset. I want us to have a brief reset around your business. And I want to break it down to the following. I want us to look at your business, and I want you to have a reset now and think about the following. So we've got a process of 3 years into 12 months, then we get down to 90 days. So starting here, for your 3-year vision, I want you to break it down into the following. Now, we can talk about revenue. So we had James Lane, also James, you on the call? James on the call. So for those of you on the call about 3 weeks ago, James came on the call, and James's 90-day sprint was to do 2 million in the next 90 days. Great. And I think the actual profit, though, from that was about 350, 400 memory, so something around that sort of figure. So with James, what's James's 3-year vision? But rather than focus just on revenue, I want to focus on revenue, but also I want to focus on what profit, i.e. net profit to you. Okay, so I want to think on those 2 things. Make sure we separate 2. So in 3 years, what's our revenue figure and what's our profit figure? Now, how you create that, we're going to dig a bit deeper on that in a second. But what's the number that you've got without going into creating a wonderful Excel sheet and, we've created a plan based on fairies? What's the figure you've got? I'm going to break it down to projects shortly. What's the revenue figure and the profit figure that you've got for that period? Next, I want you to summarize in simple terms what industry you're in, what location are you covering, and what roles are you covering. One for clients and one for candidates. Now, it could be exactly what you're in now. However, what normally happens, so some of you on the call now, those of you who get to your 7-figure year and we get excitement, invariably over half the people who do that say they're going to a new niche. And normally I try and push them and kick them and cajole them into staying in the same niche and getting the backside out of it. However, excitement, drive, whatever it might be, the decision maker, the business owner, will then go into a new niche. So they've got 2 businesses, but plan ahead. What industry, location, role is your clients and your candidates going to be in? Is it exactly the same now, or have you got this vision of going off piste? Now, this is important. This is important. So when we spoke with Mike last week, and is it a couple of weeks ago? Oh, there we go. And with Mike, I was actually referencing how some of these businesses, when they get past the 7 figures, they then go and replicate a new business. But what concerns me is they're replicating a business, but they're still half in technician mode and still half in manager mode. And they're starting a new business. When really what they should be doing is drilling down on that existing business. But in terms of your vision now, 3-year plan, revenue, profit. Next, to make that happen, what do you believe your 12-month goals? What do you believe your 12-month goals are? We're going to break it into two. One is going to be based on metrics, and we can make it very simple. So say, for example, your 12-month goal is to get to 500K, or your 12-month goal is to get to 2 million, whatever your figure is. Let's break it down to simple figures. So it could be number of placements, number of candidates. So if you've got a ratio of 5 to 1, it could be number of appointments. Whatever your key KPIs are for you, fill that out as how you see it. What needs to happen in the next 12 months? What are your key high-level figures? Again, we're going to dig deep on that shortly. But what are your figures? You need to make 50 placements. Now next, in terms of goals for the next 12 months, what needs to change in the business, or what do you see the business changing into in terms of your role in the business, which is normally the biggest constraint as we start to scale, or indeed your business model, i.e., as we focused on a couple of weeks ago with Mike. Mike's on the call, by the way, who's done with love. You know, Mike is, I'm certainly going to do over 7 figures in the next 12 months, certain of it. We said it on the call. However, Mike's biggest challenge will be the role definition, his change in the business. So the business model, role, business model, and also will be a change in niche. Now, why is that important? So when we map the market, and we get understanding about what our outcome is and those metrics, that then sets a direction for the entire ship. So if we're going to add niches in the next 12 months, or we're going to niche up, niche down, it isn't just a rash decision we make based on someone sent you a really good role or roles. It's actually a business decision. So for 12 months, what do you think your high-level goals look like? Now, next 90 days. So we've got this inherent thing, definitely in the Western world, definitely in the UK, definitely the USA, and probably around the world. When we start a new year, we clap our hands, high five on January the 1st, and we're going to do this in this epic year, and we give ourselves a blank canvas. Then towards the end of the year, let's close it out. Let's keep doing the same things, but do more of it. But then on January the 1st, we believe we can start a whole new empire doing something completely different. How insane is that? So if we take a focus of next 12 months, we want to be doing X. Next 3 years, we want to be doing X. Next 90 days, we've really got 2 things going on. Depending on how your head's built, one is we've got to focus on cash, or more business, more placements. But 2 is linking back to what we've just detailed up here, maybe a change of niche, maybe relating back to the 3-year plan. So the next 90 days, what needs to happen, or what's your outcome, both financially? So it could be a figure of, I need to make, so when we did the sprint with Nick Hoadley a few weeks ago, it was to get 35 or 70K in 35 days, 70 days. What's your metric here? What's it break down into? But also, are there other projects or components we need to be aware of in the next 90 days around a change of direction next year? There may not be, but there may be. But if you think January the 1st, you're going to start a whole new business, new niche, because January the 1st, we're not being strategic. So do we need to start to get some additional projects in place now to support next year? Or is it the same niche, but we're actually going to hit it in a more aggressive fashion? So 90 days, so what you need to be able to see, there's some link between what we're doing with our 3 years or 12 months, next 90 days. What I want to make sure we do in the next 90 days for everyone is this. Is we get this traction. We get this traction. So Alden said he's got a constraint right now, which we'll come to in a minute, around next step. So all of you might have a constraint. I imagine everyone's got a constraint. In the same, I saw a lovely image the other day about being an entrepreneur. In the same day, we got wake up, best day of my life, and then by lunchtime you want to hang yourself, and by tea time, best day of my life, and by so up and down, bam, 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 bam. So imagine we've all got constraints. However, what are the key constraints to hitting this in the next 90 days? Or the key constraints to ensure we get these foundations in place. So if we look at our market, and we can keep it nice and simple, but again, if we take the focus at we're going to close out the year with power now, we want to get paid. So that means we're not going to be perfect. We're not going to get the perfect candidate process and system in place. We're going to do a bit of that to get ourselves set for next year. But how can we get paid more? I said there'll be a few bumps. You might piss a few people off. You might have not tested the template enough times to be 100% certain that it gives you the best response rate. However, when you sit down New Year's Eve with your wife, with your partner, you're not going to sit there and go, that email I got from that Greg, he called me a tosser. Now, you shouldn't really be getting too many negative emails back because it doesn't really happen ever. But what I'm saying is focus on the money, focus on getting paid. So if we look back and we're saying on New Year's Eve, this has happened, you've done a set of things. You've followed the money in that 90-day period. So first of all, what I want you to do is this. If your entire market is mapped, and if you've got all of your data set built, you've got all your networks built, and you're 95% plus done, great. If you're not, I just want you to take a couple of minutes looking back across the last 90 days. So let's say you've got a dozen niches, you might have 50, but let's just focus on one. And the one we're going to focus on is the one that we're going to focus on in the next 90 days to get paid. So it could be you need a certain type of candidate. So you might focus on candidate 1, candidate 2, candidate 3. So you need to get these candidates now. It could be you need to get clients and candidates. But let's say we've got these 20 open roles and we need to get that type of candidate. So in the market, we've mapped it and there's 456 of them. Number in my database, 12. Straight away, we know what the constraint is. Number in my database, 400. So the gap is 56. So should we be focusing our time on that 56? It'd be nice to have it, and we can get that built in a few hours via VA, doing it even manually. However, we've got 400 we can leverage. Now with LinkedIn, what's on our LinkedIn network? Could be we've got 112. So the gap there was that 444. Now, if we look back across the last 90 days and we're focusing on building that data set, in that case, we've not got a big gap. It could be because you've actually implemented this in the last 90 days. But let's say that that number, in fact, is 100. So the gap is actually huge. We've only got a quarter of the market covered. So when we put in our client attainment system, we cover 97.2% of the marketplace. We actually haven't got that in place as a fact. But also, more importantly, you haven't got that ability to run a campaign automated now against that 456. You've got to manually go out there and find them or hope that they're in that 100. So first off, a little bit of reflection. What have we done in the last 90 days to fix this data set? What have we done? And it could be you've done nothing. It's fine. No one's going to see it apart from you. You've done nothing. Absolutely cool. In that case, then, we need to make sure you get this fixed. So what's your challenge? Well, I don't know what to do next, Andy. So Eldon, we've got 3,770,000. So we need to niche down greatly. I'm going to look at what Emma sent in a little bit. But what's your challenge? What is this? If you've got a challenge now, put it in the chat box or send the challenge to Emma and do it now. Or get your variables lined up on a piece of paper now or in an email ready to go. So by the end of this, we can fix this. Everything you're going through is being done, but there's nothing new here. So whether it be a data set or whether it be your actual campaigns. So one of the constraints, well, not constraints, one of the errors I see people make more often than not is we're just not putting enough numbers through. So let me see if she is on the call. HAP, how you doing? No, she's not on the call. I'm not going to mention her name. That's going to be. But imagine this. Imagine we've got a market of 20,000 candidates, okay? But we've got 10,000 in our database. So we've got good, 50% coverage. Our constraint there, if we want to get paid now, it's likely, depending on how we segment that 10,000, but in this example, the roles that were open for this lady, she could have filled them with the 10,000. So even let's say that it was linear, and for every segment or every silo, she only had 50% coverage. So for each silo, she only had 50% of them. She still could have got the financial number she wanted to. But in this instance, what she did was she focused on building a database. That wasn't a constraint. So if we go back to what our constraint is to get paid, we break it down step by step. The constraint to get paid there isn't to build a database. The constraint is to how do we actually get that campaign converting? How do we get our candidates out of those 10,000? So that constraint was overcome. So the first constraint was, right, I need to run a campaign. So I need to run a campaign. So that happened. I ran a campaign. Good. So I'm thinking it's solved because we'll get our metric and then we can fix it. So we put 50 through, 100 through. Have we got the conversion we need rather? No. Good. Let's update the campaign. We'll fix it. However, what happened was 50 were put through out of 10,000 and then nothing happened. It stopped. It's not working. What's not working? The campaign's not working. What are we doing? Nothing. It doesn't work. The process doesn't work. Right. Well, so what have we actually got going on here? We're making a business decision on 50. You put 50 leads through out of 10,000. When the reality is your conversion process will go like this. So when you look at people getting 50, 60, 70, 80, 90% open rate and 20, 30, 40, 50% reply rate, well, you guys have gone through it on the call now. Do you get it on your very first cycle? Not normally. Some of you do. Not normally. It might take 2 or 3 iterations. So the constraint here was in our mind, let's put another 50 through, let's update the template. Put another 50 through, update the template. Till we might have got, say, 30% response rate, then we're happy. Now, if you imagine, I'm making it very broad, but imagine if we put 10,000 candidates through and we've got 30% response rate, we've got 3,000 candidates coming to us. Do you think there might be gold in there? Now, of course, we're not going to do that, so it's going to be a mess. But if it was segmented properly, of course. So the constraint here was just understanding. We're going through a step-by-step process. So going back to your 90 days, guys, if you've got a network, if you've got a data set, your constraint probably sits around the candidate or client campaigns. It could be the step before that, you haven't got the data or you haven't got the network. So we need to get that in place. However, Alden, you don't need to have 10,000 clients before you start running the process. Even if you're running 500 a week, what needs to happen? Each week, we need to have a process where you have delivered 500 new leads to go into RRR. That's even, say, running at volume 500 a week. So what's your constraint now, guys? Is it a campaign constraint, which might be around the actual campaign itself is not converting? There might be a project constraint in there, i.e. a technical problem or a delivery problem, or it's a constraint to do with data. So you notice here, guys, what I'm not talking about here is authority. I'm not talking about going into an automated webinar strategy. I'm focusing on sticking close to the money, So if we go back to, imagine we've got nothing in place. We've got no data. We've got nothing. If we go back to end of the year, what needs to happen? Well, I know if I speak to 50 clients, even with my traditional way of doing things, I'll pick up 5 roles. Okay, so we need to get you 50 appointments, get 5 roles. So if you get 250, you might get 25 roles, correct? Yes, things currently stand great. And we might work backwards. That means we need to put through 1,000 leads. Great. What are those 1,000 clients we're going to focus on first? So this isn't about being perfect right now. This is about what do we do now to get paid before the end of the year? Get paid before end of the year. So when you look back across your campaigns, either one or two things are going to happen. I want you to fill this out. The number you run in the campaign. If you put 50 in there, the results are so open, reply, A's, B's, C's as an example. Or if you said you put through 5,000 and you got your open, replies, and A's, B's, C's, you've got a metric there. If you put 50 through, the constraint is, well, the volume. If you put 5,000 through or 500 or 1,000 and we've got poor conversion figures, right, let's fix the campaign. Or it could be the simplicity of we just need to replicate it. So if you look back across your campaigns now, and whether you've had a win, if some of you on the call put wins in, you picked up clients, some of you got candidates, look back across the last 90 days. From a campaign perspective, what do we need to make sure we don't do, i.e. what didn't happen, what do we need to fix now, or what actually did work? And it could be the simplicity of, Hazel, those roles you brought in, how do they come in? Is it something we can replicate? So what did work? Is it something we can do again and again now? Well, I don't have the data. Great. What about if we can get you 500 leads a week? And just run the exact same thing. So literally, we give the equivalent of this to a VA, and they build your data, whichever process that's going to be. But again, sticking close to the money. So we take a couple of minutes to do that. Questions on that or anything unknown on that, please put in the chat box. Let me know when you've gone through that, guys. You've gone through your... And I've only used here data and I've used campaigns. It could be other constraints. I say from a campaign perspective, you could be using, like with Laura. We said with Laura, didn't we, last week before? These really, really tough to get candidates. And she used I think the webinar process, wasn't it? She's Laura's on the call. Yeah, Laura, you're on the call. So with Laura, she ran the Maven webinar process. And we looked at her webinar, and it was, although she had a world-class speaker, the topic was generalist. So from Laura's perspective, her campaign was around the Maven webinar, getting the candidates to the webinar. So we made it focused on the actual pain point, the topic for the candidate. So Laura, you can relate that to your campaigns, with the webinar being a campaign. How many registrations did we get, etc. But what do we need to do now, as in now, September, October, to ensure November we can ride that wave and get paid? And again, it's about being prolific at this point and not being perfect.